would like to start, of course, just asking you, Michelle, familiar with your work, have followed your work over the years. First time I heard you was at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. That's the first time I was made aware of the new Jim Crow at that time. And then, of course, participated with churches and others with the study guide that the Proctor produced based upon us having that conversation about incarceration that, again, it impacted many of us in the Black community, but was not being talked about in the Black church. And so it was a breath of fresh air, of course, to just read your words again. And you then foregrounding not just this notion of love, but revolutionary love. So would you just start off by telling us what the article, of course, lends itself to what prompted you to write it, but I'm kind of interested in you defining that notion of revolutionary love and why you chose that term, if you would.
That article in The Nation was based on a series of speeches that I gave in honor of MLK Day back in January of this year. And like many people, I was feeling enormous angst about what this year, 2024, may hold for us. As the year began, things were not looking good for us, to say the least. Genocide was underway, is still underway in Gaza, and yet the mainstream news was failing to report the daily horrors that were filling my social media feed. A genocide was happening with the support of our government and our tax dollars. At the same time, climate chaos was clearly knocking on our door. 2023 was the hottest year on record, and yet oil companies were still raking in record profits, and our government was refusing to commit to the scale of change that's really necessary if we are going to have any hope of saving humanity. I had just been to a technology conference where there were tech bros admitting that AI might well destroy humanity if climate change doesn't. And on top of all that, Donald Trump was running for president again. And people all over the world were wondering aloud if our democracy was on the verge of collapse. And add to all this is the fact that police killings were making new records, but not making the news. Police killings have been on the rise since the George Floyd uprisings, along with the funding of police in new cop cities. So as this year began, I just really found myself wrestling with anger, despair, frustration. And then I did something that helped to shift my perspective, that jolted me back to life. And I pulled out a copy of King's speech condemning the Vietnam War, the speech he delivered at Riverside Church. And I was reminded of what's at stake and what's necessary now. And although he does not call it revolutionary love in the speech, I think that's what he was talking about when he argued that the United States is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, and that only a revolution of values has any hope of saving us, not just building power or developing better strategies, but a revolution of values. His famous quote, is we must rapidly shift from, being a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, when machines and computers and profit motives of property rights become more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. And, reading those words again was just a reminder. In fact, the whole speech, I really recommend anyone who has not taken the time to read that whole speech, actually do so. Because in it, he really challenges us to remember that we have more creativity and more power and more genius than we often imagine. But it's only if we are in radical solidarity with one another, if we pledge ourselves to radical solidarity, a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern above tribe, race, class, nation, and unconditional love for humanity, not just in words, but in deeds, not some kind of sentimental love or romantic love or an abstract notion of love your neighbor, not one that's just convenient or politically profitable or good for our careers, but the kind of love that is rooted in courage and that is clear-eyed and understands the necessity of changing it all, right? And I think that's why, for me, the term revolutionary love has resonance and power, because it's calling us not just to like a touchy-feely love, not an abstract one, but a one that is rooted in an awareness of the dignity and humanity of each and every one of us, no matter who we are, where we've come from, or what we may have done. And a revolutionary love is calling us to act upon that love and to have the courage to take risks, to make sacrifices with the goal of not just tinkering with our systems or with the status quo, but understanding that our economic system, our political system, our militarism, systems of white supremacy, all have to go. But there's no hope for meaningful, lasting change unless we do it with love. And that helped to bring me back to life. And I think reconnect me to the why of this work for me, and also to, remember and to honor those who have come before, as well as all those who are doing this work now and have been doing it for decades, like Joyce and Nelson. And it's really their resilience and their persistence and their, unyielding determination to build beloved community, no matter what, that I think is our only hope. Kind of work and the path that they've chosen is our only hope if we are to rise to the challenges of our time.